What if you were able to establish a secure connection between two routers? But don't worry, after watching this video, you will be able to establish a secure connection between two routers while using OSPF authentication. In today's video, you will learn three types of OSPF authentication: type 0, type 1, and type 2. So guys, let's come to our slides and I will explain the whole thing there for you guys. So, OSPF authentication. The OSPF authentication, the two feature of OSPF authentication, which is keychain and timely key, is not supported in the iOS 12 series Cisco devices. It is only supported in the iOS, if I'm not wrong, 15 series, 15.x series of Cisco devices. When you want to configure OSPF authentication, we can configure it on the global mode and also in the interface level. The interface, when we configure the interface level authentication, it will override the global mode authentication that we have configured before. When we configure the global mode authentication, it will get enabled on all interfaces. As I have told you before, in this video, we will be explaining three types of OSPF authentication. The type 0 authentication. The type 0 authentication means no authentication. It is the default authentication of OSPF when we configure the OSPF when there is no authentication. So it is called the type 0 authentication, which means no authentication. Let's come to the second one, which is clear text authentication. In the clear text authentication, we give when we configure our authentication, we give it a key. So that key is a clear text key. It does not have any hashing methods. It is just clear text authentication. It is human readable. So when someone capture our data between these two routers, so they will be able to read our password or the key that we have given to the interface. So for this problem, we have the type 2 authentication, which is MD5, which for nowadays standard, it is not a quite good authentication, but it is still better than the clear text authentication. The MD5 authentication provide us with a higher security than the type 1. And the MD5 is a hashing mechanism that converts our plain text into hash. So guys, if you want to configure it, here's how you can configure it. So I've started my Peanut Lab and I have also configured it in here. So let's open our project, open this one. So I've started the router as well, and I've also configured the OSPF between these routers. So let's console to all nodes. So first, let's start with the OSPF global mode authentication. So if you want to configure your global mode authentication, so here's how you can do it. So let's start with configuration terminal and router OSPF 1. So the global mode authentication will be configured with one command under the OSPF command. So we can type the area on which area I want to configure them, or the OSPF global mode authentication on area 0, which I'm in it, and area 0 authentication. That's it. And you can also do the message digest, and if you want to configure all the interfaces with the MD5 authentication, you can from here you can enable it on all interfaces. So I just want to configure the area 0 message digest. After that, let's come to R2. Let's do the same thing. Router OSPF 1 area 0. I want to do authentication, and also come to R3. Enable configuration terminal, which is this router. As you can see, router OSPF 1, I will do area 0. On area 0, I want to configure the authentication of OSPF, and that's it. That's like we have just enabled an authentication method on all the interfaces. So what is the benefit of this? So if any of the router didn't enable the authentication, so they will not be able to establish a neighborship with us. So this is the benefit of the global mode authentication. So let's come to the type 1 authentication. So type 1 authentication, as I've told you before, it is what? It is a clear text authentication. So if you want to configure it, here's how you can configure it. So let's configure it between R1 and R2. So let's come to interface Ethernet 0 by 0 and type the first. Let's enable the IP OSPF authentication. First, let's enable the authentication. After that, type the command IP OSPF authentication minus key. Let's give it a key or a password, which is what? Cisco 123. So I have configured the clear text authentication on the interface Ethernet 0 by 0. So if I show IP OSPF neighborship, and here as you can see the timer is going down. It is not getting reset to up to 40 because the key didn't match between the R1 and R2 interfaces. So let's wait a little bit. As you can see, the timer is going down, the dead timer, and let's wait a little bit for 5 seconds, and 3 and 1, and the connection get down. Because what? The dead timer expired. Because of what? The key didn't match between R1 and R2. So let's come to R2. The neighbor should get down. Because of what? Because the key didn't match between these two routers. So you have to configure it, the authentication key on both sides. So let's go to interface Ethernet 0 by 0, IP OSPF authentication. Let's enable our authentication. After that, IP OSPF authentication. After do what? I want to configure a key. What is the key? Cisco 123. And let's wait a little bit. As you can see, the connection got up. And if you type the command do show IP, what? OSPF neighbors. So as you can see, the timer will not get down from 30. It will just get resetted to what? As you can see, this 1.1.1, it will just got up to what? 30. Just the 40, we can say. It didn't got expired, the dead timer. So here's how, this is how you can do your clear text authentication. So now you don't want the clear text authentication too. You just want to configure the MD5 authentication. You want a better or a higher security for your. You want a higher security. So for that, you configure what? The MD5 authentication. So let's do that too. So guys, if you want to configure the MD5 authentication between two routers, so here's how you can do it. So I want to configure it between R2 and R3. So let's come to R2 and go to interface Ethernet 0 by 2. So first, let's enable the MD5 authentication method, which is IP OSPF authentication message digest. The message digest means that I want to enable the MD5 authentication between these two routers. Enter it. After that, let's do what? IP OSPF authentication, and after it is the same thing, give it a key, and let's give it a key Cisco 12345. 123, it just support 8 characters. So we have give it this key. So if you type in the command do show IP OSPF neighbor, because the what do we call that? The key is not same between these two routers, it will get expired right now. That's 4, 3, and 2, and 1, and that's it. The neighborship got down from full to down. So if you want to just get it up from the down state, so what we will do, we'll go to interface Ethernet 0 by 2. We will configure what do we call that? MD5 authentication between these two routers. So IP OSPF authentication, I want to enable the MD5 authentication message digest, and after that IP OSPF authentication, what? Give it a key, and what is the key? Key is Cisco 123, and that's it. The neighborship got up between these two routers. Because I have already configured this interface, the key Cisco 123, so the neighborship got up. So if you type the command do show IP OSPF neighbor, the neighborship got up. As you can see, it will not expire the dead timer. So that's it for today, guys. I have showed you the three types of OSPF authentication, the type 0, type 1, and type 2, and I have also showed you the global mode authentication. In the next video, which we can call it a bonus video or whatever, I will show you guys that the timely based key, how to configure the timely based key between two routers in OSPF routing protocol. So, I think I forgot something. Oh, I forgot that. Why you guys don't subscribe to our channel? So, because I put too much effort in it. So, guys, please subscribe, like, and share this video with your friend who want to configure the OSPF authentication on their network. Why you're laughing, brother, at me? So, see you in the next video. Bye bye.